I went to that convention with a couple friends, just for fun. And one of my best friends was moving to Greece, so it was kind of our last get-together before he left. And I was at a private artist dinner party, and that's where I saw him. I actually didn't know it was him at first. I thought it was Eric Peterson from Testament.
Oops.
And so they played the night before, and I congratulated him on a good show. And Whip looked at me like, what are you talking about? And so after I realized I made a mistake, I looked again and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I do know who you are. We've met before, that kind of thing. So it was a dinner party, like I said, so we just sat down and talked and, just had a good rapport right from the beginning. And that was the initial meeting back in January. I met the entire band, the original lineup with Chris DeGarmo, when I was 18. I drove to a music store near my house in Clearwater, Florida, and I have photographs of it still. And they signed my Warning album cover. And then I met Michael again in 2011 at the NAMM show. We didn't talk. It was just, hey, how are you, passing by. And then I saw their 30th anniversary, the last show of their 30th anniversary tour in Florida, and actually went back and said hi to everybody, met Jeff, just basically told him what a great influence he was on me and, so many others around the world. He said thank you. That was pretty much it. Michael Wilton had some other side thing he was working on, and not even band related, but doing some music for some TV things, and that was initially how we talked, and so we exchanged information, and one thing led to another. It was an evolution. They didn't just come out and say, hey, we want you to be the singer for Queensryche. It didn't happen like that. We collaborated on something, just us, and obviously they were impressed. He was impressed, rather. I was completely unaware of any internal conflicts or dynamics within the band, and personally, I never asked. Even after things started to kind of become public, I still never asked. I just figured it's none of my business. I'm asked to do something, and I don't want to get involved. Yeah, I did the YouTube. I did some of those, and just to try to show a sample of what I can do. And I didn't really spend a lot of time on it. I did it at my house, and just kind of ran through some of the old classics that I like. And I've done an Yngwie Malmsteen cover. I'm a Viking. I've done just for fun. These are my favorite singers, just to show that I can have completely different sounds and textures to my voice. And so that was kind of why I did it. But when they asked, as it morphed into more, when I was asked, or actually, this might happen, that we would do a side project under another band name, just so that we can play. I think Jeff was heavily wanting to do his solo material, and everyone respects that and understands that, but I guess they need to work too. So this was that's all that was about. I was extremely honored, and I still am. No, I just said, I would be a fool to say no. The Crimson Glory is a once in a lifetime thing. It's in the U.S. a lot of people don't know about them, but certainly throughout Europe, South America, it's a very cult followed band. It's very special, and that's a once in a lifetime. So to even get the opportunity to play with the guys in Queensryche, I mean, it's like incredible too. So I immediately said, I don't even need to think about it. Whatever issues that might arise, I will figure a way. I don't know him as a person, so I really I can't comment. I met him really once, and, he wasn't impolite, I'm sure he was very tired, and he just basically said thank you. I mean, I told him what a huge influence he was vocally and how much I respected his contribution, and basically he created a style of singing, in my opinion. And he was largely responsible for the reason why I sing in the style. He said thank you, and that's pretty much it. So I don't have a bad opinion of him from my personal dealings. I can only speak as an artist. Well, I've kind of been down this road before with Crimson. Everyone said, Crimson Glory would never go on without Midnight, and I understand that sentiment. But, what do the fans expect the band to do? Just quit forever? This is their life, and their passion. And, if I sing similar, or I'm able to represent that style that Jeff Tate does in Queensryche, then a lot of people say I'm a copycat or a clone. If I'm too different, a lot of people say, they should go under another name with a completely different sound. Then, that's not being true to who they are and what their sound is. So, I think that I need to just do the best I can with those songs, and then the new material that we're writing, I'll be able to be me. The general perception is that I'm just a hired gun, and that's really not the case at all. I'm actually equal in everything. In the songwriting, I'm a drummer. I play guitar, and so I write a lot of drum parts. I show them to Scott. He takes some of them and he likes. Other things, obviously he's the drummer. He's going to put it his way. And when I flew to Seattle, I stay at Michael's house, and we all spend a lot of quality time. When we're not playing, we're hanging out, having dinners, just doing things, like friends do. So we've bonded really well in a rather short period of time, and they're all very good people. They're very sweet. There's no ego, which I really like. I was very happy that there wasn't the whole rock star attitude. They're just like normal, like we are. I think The Warning's my favorite record. I like Sanctuary, probably Roads to Madness too. Those are my favorites. Well, obviously the people that have come out are supporting the new lineup, and so we're all very thankful for that. I know there's going to be those people that won't accept me, and they only see Queensryche as even the original lineup with Chris, and I get it. I'm a fan too, so I completely can see both sides better than anyone. And what was the question? What do I think of the fans? I just think, a lot of them have been very supportive. And, the one thing that I would like to stress is it's one thing to sing the songs in your car or around the house. It's another when you're doing it with the band. And so, just like with Crimson Glory, I just need a little time to adjust. I'm a little scratchier singer. Crimson Glory is heavier, I think, and a higher range. So I don't think that the range is an issue for me typically. But, trying to sing cleaner is more of a challenge for me than anything. And then you have travel, different climate, not sleeping well, food, just totally different atmosphere. People are going to compare me to an album that's done line by line over and over until it's perfect because it's forever. And so I think that the fans sometimes can be a little unrealistic with what they come to expect. Number one, those aren't my songs. I didn't write them. I didn't sing them. There's not my vocal cords. So I do appreciate some understanding that I don't want to copy Jeff. I don't want to be Jeff. I just want to be me. But I want to sing the songs as close to the record as I can. I mean, obviously, that's what the fans want to hear. And so, I just feel like, we're working out some of the kinks and the bugs and let it become more natural to me, and it's happening. I didn't know because I wasn't following Queensryche for the last many years. Once in a while I would go on YouTube and I would go, oh, what are they up to? But I haven't followed Queensryche in many, many, many years. Many years. Because after Empire, I just kind of lost a lot of interest. I think Promised Land's a great album, but I didn't, personally, and I've told the band, I wasn't a big fan of the other albums. It's not that I'm just a heavy metal guy. I like a lot of different styles. But where my heart lied with the music of Queensryche wasn't what I was hearing. Although I do respect that artists grow and they want to write different things. And, there's something to be said for that too. I mean, the Metallica Black Album is a perfect example. They need to do other things. They can't write the same record every time. It's boring. And you're not growing musically. And they're not 20 years old anymore. So their thinking is different. Their approaches to writing are different. Their life experiences are different that they're going to draw from to create new music. So, I wasn't aware of any turmoil until, it was like a big, big thing. I mean, that's why we're all fans of the music. That's why we play it. We're fans of the music. Yeah. And like even my Facebook page, I've had people say, some negative things on my page, and I'm not the only one that administers my page. And I just say, look, I can't watch everything that's on there, and I don't want to like censor people, but it's my page. If you want to talk shit about me and be rude, do it on a forum. That's not the place. If people want to support me, then they like my page. If they're going to like my page just so they can comment and be mean, then I have every right to delete them and ban them. And if they're not part of the positive energy that's in my life, then I don't need it. And that's not just a Queensryche thing. That's anything in my life personally. So it's unfortunate. A lot of times the fans make it drama. We don't want any part of that. So I just post things that are newsworthy. We're playing here. Here's some new pictures. Check this out. Just little updates. I don't want to get into gossip and all of that stuff. Nobody in the band does. We don't like that. Well, all of us have Pro Tools, which is a recording platform that's widely used, and we Skype, we video Skype, and Parker and I have done some songwriting that way. He'll play his guitar, and then I'll grab my guitar, and we'll do different things together. I have my drums set up at my house, so I can do some of that there too. And so, little pieces will get started when we're not together. When I go to Seattle, then we write and we, kind of rough track record things there. I'll be there soon, and I'll be spending some more time out there exclusively just for writing and recording some stuff. So it works. I'm sure that those guys may have stuff that didn't get on other records. Surely stuff that I've written lyrics and melodies to perhaps were older material, but we all contribute any way that's most beneficial to the music. You know, if Eddie has great lyrics and a melody, then I'll totally use them and sing them. You know, if I think I can tweak it and make it a little better, then I'll try it. And if we all feel that it's what's best, then fine. But nobody tries to hog a song for credits. You know, we're not into that. Both. You know, I do like a lot of air drumming. I'm very rhythmic, and I still feel like a drummer that likes to sing. I've been actually did insurance adjusting, working catastrophe claims, hurricanes, snowstorms, working out, traveling the country, doing that. And I also had a custom upholstery business for 17 years, doing high-end upholstery for custom streetcars and boat interiors. I've worked with a lot of interior decorators. So my trade was upholstery, and over the last 5 years, I've done insurance adjusting. Music is my passion, but it's very hard today to survive just as a musician. So other people have other ways of earning income, and it's very lucrative. You know, I mean, I could never just go punch a time clock for somebody, especially my attitude. I'm pretty rebellious. You know, I'm easygoing and nice, but I don't like to be told what to do. So, you know, I've been self-employed since 1995. I'm not a party guy. You know, I'm the first guy on the bus. Drink my tea, say hi to some people. I'm pretty reserved. You know, I'm not an attention seeker. Outside of what people see on Facebook and on the internet and playing on a stage, me personally, I'm just not that guy. I mean, I'll go into a music store in the drum section usually, and the guy will say, "Hey, what's up, man?" I'll say, "Hey, how are you?" He's like, "So can I help you with anything?" "No, I'm just looking around." "So, you know, do you drum in a band?" And I'll say, "No." And they're like, "Oh, really? You're not playing around here anywhere?" "No." And that's it. I don't say, you know, what I'm doing or any of that. I just don't see the need, you know. I don't want to brag and be that guy. Well, I used to play a lot of billiards, pool. I used to play like 4 or 5 days a week. I haven't done that in a while. Really, all I've done for my hobby is just music lately. The last solid year, maybe 2, has just really been about music. You know, I have a motorcycle. I like to go cruise once in a while. I like to build things. You know, like I've remodeled my house, and you know, from tearing off the roof to framing in, you know, putting in new windows, tiling floors, ripping out bathrooms. I'm a hands-on kind of a guy, you know. I like to get in there and do it myself. I didn't ask for permission, but, you know, I originally, when it was proposed to me, I just said, look, I was asked to maybe sing a handful of shows with the members of Queensryche minus Jeff Tate under another name so that they can play some shows and earn a paycheck. And they were fine, you know. They were concerned, I think, like, you know, well, is this going to turn into more? I didn't know. I really didn't. I mean, So, the whole time they've been extremely supportive. As a friend, they're happy for me. They're very proud. I think that they feel like kind of a pat on their own back, like, Todd's our singer, and look at who also wants to have them. So I think in their own way they feel kind of honored about that. And, they're very supportive. I had a few people at the Rising West show that were mainly Crimson Glory is their favorite. They came out because I sing in Crimson Glory. That's why they came out to the show, for the Queensryche, for the Rising West show. So it worked both ways. I think there's a lot of similarity, in the styles, kind of, and usually if you like one, you'll like the other. With Midnight, it was either Crimson Glory is done forever, or they move on like they did with me. There's no way he can come back. In Queensryche, people are always going to wonder, will they ever get back together with Jeff? Will there be this like mending and a reunion, and everybody can love and be happy, and Chris DeGarmo can get in, and everybody wants, you know the story. In fantasy land, anything is possible. And that's I can't speculate what the future holds. I don't want anybody in their band, to have animosity or problems. As a human being, I don't want that. All I can say is because Jeff is alive and well, there's always a potential. How can I say? I can't speak for those guys. But there is a difference between a living person and someone that's passed away. When they passed away, that's done. There's no way. So as long as it's a little different, But you know what? I just do the best I can do and embrace it for every day that I have it, because nothing lasts forever. And I just want to embrace it and cherish it and feel fortunate. And this is one part of my life. This isn't my life. It doesn't define who I am as a person. There's life before Queensryche and Crimson Glory and anything else I might do, and life after. The music lives forever. But, we all have other interests in our lives that are very important too, our families and friends. We're actually releasing one song, a raw demo, within the next couple of days. We're writing the album. It's just taking a very long time. Like I said, everyone has careers in Crimson Glory outside of the band. And, John Drenning has a baby now. So, these things are, honestly, they're more important. Spending the time with your baby and doing this and doing that. And, and now that I'm in Queensryche, that takes time too. I did one song for Tommy Vitaly called "Hands of Time." I don't know if you've heard it. It's a ripper. It's straight up, balls to the wall, very high, Rob Halford style. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
If you just put in Todd La Torre, "Hands of Time," you can find it. He's an Italian guitar player, really nice guy. Rhino played drums for Man of War is on it. There's a lot of guest vocalists on his whole album. Matt Levin's on it. There's a bunch of people, a lot of great musicians. So that's something that I did, but I never sang before for a band before Crimson. Well, Crimson Glory's never been a heavy touring band at all. And so I don't foresee it being a problem. Queensryche is going to play and tour more. That's just the way it is, which I will do. And, I wouldn't even want to speculate. Obviously, there could be some conflict with certain festival dates and stuff, but, both bands know what the deal is. I've never been asked or told or influenced to quit Crimson Glory to be in Queensryche. They all have been very understanding and respectful, and, they knew that I sang for them first.
You're here. You made it.
I'm here. I didn't quit. A lot of people don't have that loyalty, and they're, I don't want to hurt anybody. It's like I want my cake and eat it too. I had obligations, and in my heart, I want to finish the Crimson Glory album, and we'll do some touring on it. But we're not going to tour, year round and do the scheduling that Queensryche typically does. So I really don't see that it's going to be a big issue. In Crimson Glory, nobody wears in-ear monitors except for the keyboard player and myself. Very loud amps on stage. In Queensryche, everybody wears in-ear monitors. Usually the amplifiers are facing backwards. And everything is kind of very, a certain way. I think the guys in Crimson are a little wilder. They're a little
party animals.
They're a little wilder.
I've partied with Rip and Parker before.
they're a little wilder, I think, and we're more into the gothic, leather and bondage and spikes and shit like that. Queensryche's, like the intellectual metal thinking band, which I love it, but you're never gonna see those guys in anything with studs or that kind of a look. So in Crimson Glory, it allows me to wear the things that I like to wear for that mood. And then in Queensryche, it's, I have many different sides. So it's fun for me to be able to do both. Well, hopefully, John is feeling better because he was not feeling well at all yesterday. He's sick. So, we're just going to play. I don't know how long we're playing tonight, maybe an hour and a half. If that's the case, then we'll get about 16 to 18 songs. Be primarily the first two albums. We may put a couple Astronomica songs in there. Just a lot of energy. Hopefully there's a nice turnout. I don't know how much promotion there was for the show, but, I like the smaller venues. We've played to 20, 30,000, and that's great, and it's fun to see a sea of people, but sometimes when they're right there in the front, it's a really great energy, and we like that. So hopefully we just, hopefully I can sing great tonight and, just have a good time. That's the most important thing. I know that they play Europe sometime, I don't know when, because like I say, I'm not too familiar with their touring schedule over here, but surely we'll be doing something in Europe. I couldn't tell you when, though. I would just say thank you. Many of them know of me from Crimson Glory, which is wonderful. So if people question my ability or doubt my range, or can I pull off the lower toned, they have the Lost Reflection, some of those songs that, it's kind of nice to be able to lean on the Crimson Glory side and say, okay, look what he can do here. He's capable to do that. I would just say thank you for giving the whole band, it's not about me, but giving the whole band, and Jeff too, I don't want anybody choosing sides. Whatever he's doing, if they support it, they should. That's great. And I just think it's great that they'll also keep an open mind with having me being in the band and giving me some growing room and let me adapt to it more. I think we'll be doing some killer stuff. You know, I want to push the envelope vocally. You know, I'm trying to make it heavier. You know, I try to make it heavier than anything they've ever had. And I don't mean just like high singing, but I mean a little more texture, a little dirtier, a little grittier, just kind of I don't want to say overstep the boundaries, because we want to still be that sound of Queensryche, but there are some things that I want to be able to introduce vocally that you've never heard on a Queensryche album before. And so, you know, hopefully this will be a nice direction from, you know, what the fans say the last couple of records. You know, they want something heavier. So the stuff that we're writing now is in a heavier vibe, but it's not going to be just a straight up heavy metal record. You know, going to have some other very musical elements to it as well. I mean, that's what Queensryche is really about, is having, you know, being able to play strings in a song. Like in Roads to Madness, you know, there's an orchestrated piece in there. So that's a very, you know, that song has a lot of transitions. Goes from a very slow ballad with a kind of a creepy vibe, and then it gets into this double time, fast-paced thing. So, you know, we're just doing what feels right to us.